Hare Krishna.
Sundar can start.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaivam Devim Saraswatim Vasam Tato Veeren Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Nishtiki. So we will today we will go through chapter 22, third canto, chapter 22, which is titled "The Marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti." So last week we were discussing about the conversation between Manu and Kardama Muni, and then in the last section you can see that Kardama Muni was glorifying Manu, how he was a one great emperor, and the whole world is flourishing because of his righteousness and his rule based on religious principles. So the chapter 22nd starts with who can you show that? Yeah, chapter 22nd starts with Manu actually glorifying Kardama Muni, and here is a summary of the chapter. So from text 1 to 7, Manu's glorification of the Brahmanas, and especially Kardama Muni here, and text 18 to 14, Manu offers his daughter in marriage. He actually requests the sage to accept his daughter in marriage. And text 15 to 21, the sage accepts the hand of Devahuti, and he glorifies her qualities after careful consideration and accepts her in marriage. And then text 22 to 39, after giving his daughter in marriage, Manu returns back to his kingdom and engages in devotional service to the Lord and rules for close to 300 million years before he actually attains to the transcendental destination. So this is the summary of the chapter, and we will just go over some of the I'll read through all the different translations, and then for some of the text actually we'll read the purport, and for the other text I'll just mention about some of the salient points that Srila Prabhupada actually discusses in the purport. So text 1, Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent, and the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows. Text 2, Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. So in this particular verse, Manu glorifies the Brahmanas, and he especially mentions about the origin of the Brahmanas, which is in the verse. He says that the Brahmanas are created from Lord Brahma's face, and of course in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually talks about how Brahmanas are created from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. And then he also extends in the purport and talks about how because they are originating from the mouth of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, they are meant to spread the glories of the Lord, or the essence of all the Vedas is to understand about Krishna and his glories. So they are meant to actually spread his glories all through the world through their mouth. So a line from Srila Prabhupada's purport is Brahmanas were created from the mouth of the Supreme Person, and therefore they are meant to spread the knowledge of the Vedas in order to spread the glories of the Lord. And Prabhupada also talks about in the purport, the difference between persons who actually engage in sense gratification and people who actually engage in the service of the Lord. And so he categorizes them into demons and brahmanas. So let's go to text 3. For the protection of the brahmanas, the 1,000-legged supreme being created as the Kshatriyas from his 1,000 arms. Hence the brahmanas are said to be his heart and the Kshatriyas his arms. So here Manu is talking about the birth of the Kshatriyas who are being born from the arms of the Supreme Lord, which are meant to actually protect the Brahmanical culture and the Brahmanas. And Prabhupada mentioned Kshatriyas are specifically meant to maintain the Brahmanas, because if the Brahmanas are protected, then the head of the civilization is protected. And then he goes on to say how, by protecting the head of the society, everything will fall in place, and it's beneficial for the whole human society. Text 4. That is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves, and the Lord himself, who is both the cause and effect and yet is yet immutable, protects them through each other. So it's a very very wonderful verse. It talks about the cooperation between the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, the synergy between them. That the Brahmanas protect the Kshatriyas by instructing them on spiritual matters, on Vedic principles, and how to lead and rule in a religious manner according to the Vedic principles. The Kshatriyas protect the Brahmanas by maintaining them, by seeing them that they are protected and taken care of nicely. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport that the entire social structure of the Varna and Ashram is a cooperative system meant to uplift all to the highest platform of spiritual realization. The Brahmanas are intended to be protected by the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas are also intended to be enlightened by the Brahmanas. So it's a wonderful synergy, and the cooperation between the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas actually lead to the benefit of the whole society, which includes the Vaishyas and the Sudras also. So, but this cooperation between the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas formed the framework on which the other categories or other divisions also benefit from this cooperation. And then Prabhupada also mentions the purport that actually the Lord is the ultimate protector, but he is aloof from all activities in the material world. So he creates the Brahmanas to protect the Kshatriyas and Kshatriyas to protect the Brahmanas. So there is a wonderful cooperation and synergy that the Lord has created the system for, and if it's utilized in the right way, then the whole human society will benefit. So text 5. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you. For your Lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. So can somebody read the? I thought the next few verses are. I felt it was very nice and important and very instructive. So I thought we can read the purports of 5, 6, and 7. So maybe one of you can help by reading the purport. That will be great. Of text 5. Maybe Sri Gopal Prabhu, you want to start? Text 5 purport? You want to read?
Okay. Manu described herein with the result of seeing a great saintly person. Lord Chaitanya says that one should always try to associate with saintly persons, because if one establishes a proper association with a saintly person, even for a moment, one attains all perfection. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. In our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnupada Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and on first sight he requested his humble self to preach his message in the Western countries. There was no preparation for this, but somehow or other he desired it, and by his grace we are now engaged in executing his order, which has given us a transcendental occupation and has saved and liberated us from the occupation of material activities. Thus, it is actually a fact that if one meets a saintly person completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves his favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there is an opportunity to. It is therefore enjoined in Vedic literature that one should always try to associate with saintly persons and try to disassociate oneself from the common man, because by one word of a saintly person one can be liberated from material entanglement. A saintly person has the power, because of his spiritual advancement, to give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul. Here, Manu admits that all his doubts are now over, because Kardama has very kindly described the different duties of individual souls.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So as you can see in the purport, Prabhupada very nicely, Srila Prabhupada actually very nicely exemplifies about the association, the importance of association with a saintly person, and he says that one's entire mission, if one achieves the favor of a saintly person, then one entire mission of human life is fulfilled. And he goes on to give his own example, meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and how he actually got the instruction and also his favor. And I mean, that's why the whole movement came about in the West, because of that single meeting. And Prabhupada glorifies the moment association with the saintly person. It's a verse by saying what is not possible to achieve in thousands of life can be achieved just one moment's association with a saintly person. And we can see, Prabhupada's disciples who are so focused and fixed and carrying on his mission has the same impact. When practicing devotees associate with them, advancement actually becomes easy when we favorably associate and serve them. So text 6. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched my head with my head the blessed dust of your feet. So here again, Manu is actually glorifying Kardama Muni, how he has a good fortune to actually meet him and take his association. And Prabhupada again emphasizes the point of associating with saintly people, and he also emphasizes the importance of taking shelter of the parampara and a spiritual master who is coming in a bona fide parampara. So I'll just read one section of the purport where he says, when Maharaj Raghuna asked Jada Bharat, about his wonderful achievement of spiritual success. He replied to the king that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion or simply by converting oneself into sannyasi or offering sacrifices as recommended in the scriptures. These methods are undoubtedly helpful for spiritual realization, but the real effect is brought about by the grace of Mahatma. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's 8th stanza of Prayers to Spiritual Master, it is clearly stated that simply by satisfying the spiritual master, one can achieve the supreme success in life. And in spite of executing all ritualistic performances, if one cannot satisfy the spiritual master, one has no access to spiritual perfection. And that's pretty, self-explanatory. What Srila Prabhupada, he emphasizes really the importance or the secret to spiritual success, which is pleasing of the Mahatma or the spiritual master, and all the other performances of either the penances or rituals or taking sannyas or everything else seems to be hanging on this one point, which is the satisfaction of the Mahatma of the spiritual master. So he tries, Srila Prabhupada drives home this point in this particular verse. So text 7. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. And it's a very, again, a beautiful verse. It talks about hearing, and here Manu very gladly expresses how he was all ears to hear the different instructions from Kardama Muni. And so I thought this is also a wonderful purport that so many nice points are being discussed here. So if one of you can read this purport, that will be great. Are you able to? Mataji is saying that she cannot hear very clearly. Are you able to hear me clearly? So maybe Govinda Prabhu, you want to read this purport, text 7?
I am able to hear clearly.
Yes,
Okay.
I can read. Let's go to the purport. Text 7 purport. Srila Rup Goswami has given directions in his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu on how to accept a bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. First, the desiring candidate must find a bona fide spiritual master, and then he must very eagerly receive instructions from him and execute them. This is reciprocal service. A bona fide spiritual master or saintly person always desires to elevate a common man who comes to him. Because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, Krishna consciousness, a saintly person always desires that everyone becomes a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. Manu said that since he was advised and instructed by Kardama Muni, he was very much favored. He considered himself lucky to receive the message by oral reception. It is specially mentioned here that one should be very inquisitive to hear with open ears from the authorized source of bona fide spiritual master. How how is one to receive? One should receive the transcendental message by oral reception. The word karnarandha means through the holes of the ears. The favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. This does not mean, however, that the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ear in exchange with some dollars, or if the man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. Such reception through ears is bogus. The real fact is that bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness, and he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness, you can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room, another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work, another is advised to do preaching work, and another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in cooking department. There are different departments of activities in Krishna consciousness, and a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act he becomes perfect. Bhagavad Gita makes us clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability, just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in military art. Arjuna offered his service Arjuna offered his service fully as a military man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of the spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is the expert in giving such instructions. This combination, the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple, makes the entire process perfect. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his explanation of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasatmika Buddhir, that one who want to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from the spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and should consider that his life and soul. Faithful execution of the instruction which he receives from the spiritual master is the only duty of his disciple, and that will bring him perfection. One should be very careful to receive the message from the spiritual master through the ears and execute it faithfully. That will make one's life successful. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Prabhu. And yeah, as the how spiritual master gives us a practical instruction of engaging in devotional service according to our particular propensity, and by following his instructions faithfully, one can attain perfection. And of course, it all comes through hearing and through our ears and executing those instructions faithfully. So text 8. So this section now, Manu, Swayambhuva Manu will actually offer his daughter to Kardama Muni. So text 8. O great sage, graciously be pleased to listen to the prayer of my humble self, for my mind is troubled by affection of my daughter. So he is actually asking here a favor from Kardama Muni. He is requesting Kardama Muni to actually accept his daughter as his wife. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the way to ask a favor, I mean, sometimes you have to ask the favor from a saintly person, and it's not wrong, but there is a way to ask a favor. One should ask a favor. Srila Prabhupada says one cannot ask that favor without satisfying the saintly person fully. So before asking a favor, one should completely submit and serve the Mahatma and satisfy him fully before asking a favor. Of course, devotees of the caliber of Manu won't ask a favor for themselves, or I mean, one who has culture and some spiritual knowledge most likely won't ask a favor for some selfish purpose. But here, Manu is doing his duty as a father, and he is asking a favor for the marriage of his daughter. And so he follows the etiquette of glorifying Kardama Muni and pleasing him before asking a favor. Text 9. My daughter is a sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapada. She is seeking a suitable husband in terms of age, character, and good qualities. So here he emphasized the point that Devahuti is coming from a very great family, and he now stresses the qualities of Devahuti so that he can give the best impression to Kardama Muni. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the purpose of Manu's introducing his daughter as the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapada, the two great kings, was to convince the sage that the girl comes from a great family. So, of course, Kardama Muni was a Brahmana, and she was coming from a Kshatriya family, but that was allowed for a girl to be in a lower division than the boy in the Vedic system. And Prabhupada also mentioned the purport about how she didn't go about finding a suitable husband on her own, but rather she expressed her desire to her father, and father made suitable arrangements so that she can be given in marriage. So she didn't try to do it independently. Text 10. The moment she heard from sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. So she became, her heart becomes fixed on Kardama Muni, and she accepted within her heart Kardama Muni as her husband by hearing his glories from Narada Muni. Text 11. Therefore, please accept her, O chief of the Brahmanas, for I offer her with faith, and she is in every respect fit to be a wife and take charge of your household duties. So Manu is actually offering his daughter as wife here, and Prabhupada writes in the purport, he gives a wonderful he actually distinguishes between a Grihamedi and a Grihastha. So Manu is saying here, she will take charge of the household duties. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the household duty of a man is to not satisfy his sense gratification, but to remain with the wife and children, at the same time attain development in spiritual life. So that is the distinguishing factor between a Grihastha and a Grihamedi, is that there is even though a man and woman are in the household life with children, but the same time they make spiritual advancement. So that is the key point for a Grihastha life. So, text 12. To deny an offering that has come of itself is not commendable, even for one absolutely free from all attachment, much less one addicted to sensual pleasure. So here in text 12, Manu is telling this as an indirect indication that dear sage, that you have actually desired to have a suitable wife, and you had prayed to Lord Vishnu for attaining such a suitable wife. Now your desire is getting fulfilled on its own accord by the Lord's arrangement. So I have come here to offer my daughter to you, so please accept her. So he's indirectly telling her, please accept such a accept my daughter as your wife. Text 13. One who rejects an offering that comes of its own accord, but later breaks a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. So in this, it's a beautiful text. You can see how um, Manu is actually behooving the sage to be, of course, the sage is honest in his dealings, and that's why he directly prayed to Lord Vishnu. He was not proud or falsely humble, or generally, practicing the community of practicing devotees, there is this term called pure devotee syndrome, where we are at one level, but we think we are at a higher level, or we know what the goal is, and we tend to project ourselves to be at the highest, at a higher level than where we are actually situated, as far as our realization, as far as our level of advancement goes. But in this whole episode, you can see that they are showing the real culture of the spiritual. I mean, the of great personalities. The real culture of great personalities comes from honestly accepting the level where they are at, and not trying to behave behave artificially at a different or a higher level. So here, in indirect manner, Manu actually requests the sage that please accept Devahuti as your wife. And if Kardama Muni, or if a person, if let's take this to our situation. If a person actually doesn't understand his level of advancement or his own needs, and artificially tries to be renounced, then at some point it will backfire, and he will come back to, he will have a wake up call and come back to his the level of advancement that is truly in. So that is what Manu is telling him, that now it's coming, your desires are being fulfilled, so please accept. If you don't accept it, it will backfire on you. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that even though Manu was, even though Kardama Muni was living in a hermitage and was devoid of all worldly possessions, still Manu was ready to give his daughter, because the importance of the culture and quality were prominent than the material possessions and wealth. So that's also a very beautiful, a very practical lesson, that the culture of character and quality of a person is more important than the possessions that he has. So text 14. Swayambhu Manu continued, "Oh wise man, I heard from you you were prepared to marry. Please accept her hand, which is being offered to you by me, since you have not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy." So Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Prabhupada mentions the purport that there are two kinds of brahmacharis, Naishtika brahmachari and then Upakurvana brahmachari. And so the Naishtika brahmachari takes a vow to actually follow the principles of brahmacharya throughout life, and then the Upakurvana brahmachari actually he takes the vow of celibacy only up to a certain age, and then he can enter into grihastha ashram. So Kardama Muni falls into the second category, and so Manu actually offers his daughter in marriage. So text 15. So here from text 15 to 21, the sage actually accepts the proposal, and he actually praises Devahuti and her qualities from how much ever he knows. And in fact, I was thinking, the sage was actually glorifying the beauty, the qualities, and all this. And he could discover in her, that she was not an ordinary woman. She was of course the daughter of the emperor of the whole universe, and so he glorifies her. But I was thinking, he is it mundane? But of course, the Acharya say it's not mundane. This attraction or even the praise is not mundane, because in text 21 we can see that even though he does, Kardama Muni actually glorifies her in text 21. He immediately just shifts to thinking about Lord Krishna. So we can see how he glorifies her, but at the same time he is detached, which means that he was stating the facts, but he was not in the mode of passion, or attracted to her in the mode of passion. So text 15, the great sage replied, "Certainly I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore our marriage according to the Vedic system can take place." So in this verse, first he actually reasons as to um, why he would marry her, and he gives the conditions that no, she has not yet married, or not, she has not given word to anyone. So these were the considerations of Kardama Muni. And Prabhupada says this kind of marriage is a first class marriage. And in the purport he says there were many considerations by Kardama Muni before accepting the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Most important is that Devahuti had first of all fixed her mind on marrying him. She did not choose to have any other man as her husband. That is a great consideration, because female psychology dictates that when a woman offers her heart to a man for the first time, it's very difficult for her to take it back. And he says these are some of the requirements for a first class marriage. And text 16, let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who would not accept her hand? She is so beautiful that her by body luster alone she excels the beauty of her ornaments. The ornaments are there, to increase one's beauty, but her beauty excels the beauty of the ornaments. And this is how Kardama Muni praises her. Text 17. I have heard that Vasu, the great Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with a ball on the roof of the palace. For she was indeed beautiful, with her tinkling ankle bell and her eyes moving to and fro. So this is she was so beautiful, stunningly beautiful, that the Gandharva Vishwavasu actually, kind of fainted, or he got bewildered actually by looking at her beauty, or being captivated by her beauty and the sound of the ankle bells. Text 18. What wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and sister of Uttanapada? Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune cannot even perceive her. Yet she has come of her own accord to seek my hand. Yeah. So he continues the praise and the glorification. And in text 19, he accepts Devahuti as his wife. Therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife on one condition, that after she bears the semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. So here you can see how Kardama Muni didn't want to enjoy life, but continue all throughout the life. But rather he wanted to actually follow the Vedic principles of the Varnashram system and engage in the devotional service of the Lord, and completely focus and engage in the devotional service of the Lord toward the end of his life. So Kardama Muni was in the hermitage practicing complete celibacy as a brahmachari, and although he had a desire to marry, he did not want to be a householder for the whole span of his life. That's what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, because he was conversant with the Vedic principles of human life. And that's a very important point in this particular purport. Of course, it's an important lesson that we can take also. So text 20. The highest authority for me is the unlimited supreme personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rests. He is the origin of the all Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world. So here Kardamamuni is saying that he was ordered by his father Prajapati to produce children, and even though his father was Prajapati, he knew that ultimately the origin is Lord Vishnu, and whatever Vishnu desired was his duty and nothing else. So he accepts Lord Vishnu as the highest authority here. In text 21, Sri Maitreya said, "O great Vidura, the sage Kardama said this much only, and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage." And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport very beautifully, it appears Kardama Muni was fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, because as soon as he became silent, he at once began to think of Lord Vishnu. And that is the way of Krishna consciousness. So you can see how he was he was not carried away by the beauty of Devahuti, but he was very self-controlled actually, and he was a great devotee, and he had spontaneous attraction for the Lord. And even though he had the desire, but still, and he spoke about Devahuti and praised her and so on and so forth. But his focus was on the Supreme Lord and meditating on the Supreme Lord. It's like the background process in our system keeps running. So similarly, the pure devotees or devotees in Krishna consciousness, the background thought of Krishna never goes away, even though they may be engaged externally in many other affairs or activities. So text 22, after having unmistakably known the decision of the queen as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equal by hers. Text 23. Emperor Satarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles in dowry to the bride and bridegroom. And Prabhupada talks about the custom of marriage here. He talks about how charity is also given along with the bride to the bridegroom as goodwill, and and that is a custom that is even followed currently in India to some extent. Text 24. Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhu Manu, his mind agitated by feeling of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms. And the purport Srila Prabhupada very nicely writes, the father always remains in anxiety until he hands over his grown-up daughter to a suitable boy. And he says that the parents' responsibility is there until they get a suitable spouse for the children, and then they are relieved of the responsibility. So we have, for some of the parents here, we have quite some work to do. Text 25. The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter, therefore tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter." So, so of course, this is a sentiment that Swayam expresses. Of course, it's it's such a beautiful dealings here. Even though he's representing the whole mankind, he's still affectionate to his family members and to his daughter especially. And we can see that devotees also show such affection and emotions when dealing with the family members. They are not cold in the interaction with their family members and their relatives. And we can think of the example of Arjuna also, who cried when Abhimanyu actually passed away or was killed in the battlefield, and he cried out in separation and affection for his son. So it's genuine affection actually that makes this spiritual culture so wonderful. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that a woman is actually protected by men during different stages, and how initially by the father, and then she gets handed over to her husband, and finally to her sons, and that's how she is taken care of and she is protected. Text 26. After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, following by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seers, beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of Saraswati, the river, so agreeable to saintly persons. So the next section, this section actually talks about how Swayambhu Manu returns to his capital, his kingdom, and what he does further up to his end of his life. So it gives in a summary format of the activities of Swayambhu Manu, beginning by returning to his kingdom. So here you can see that the text 26-27. He sees that the king actually sees the beautiful hermitage of the sages, and he was so filled with happiness. And Prabhupada writes, the great sages had no skyscrapers, but the hermitages were so beautiful that the king was very much pleased with this sight. And we can see how even in our lives, when we go to a rustic place or a place in the country and it's not concrete jungle, then we feel much more happy and much more peaceful. So the king was experiencing in the same way, that by seeing the hermitages along the river Saraswati. Text 28. Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet the returning lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. So this is very similar to how great kings, when they return, they are actually welcomed in such a glorious fashion. And we can remember how Lord Krishna actually came when he returned to Dwarka. He was welcomed in such a glorious fashion. And similarly, Lord Ramachandra, when he returned to Ayodhya, he was also welcomed in such a glorious fashion. So text 29-30. The city of Barhismati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. So the capital of his city, Barhismati, was actually the capital city of the kingdom of Swayambhu Manu, and it has a link, it has a connection with the Supreme Lord, Lord Varahadev. When the Lord Varaha appeared and he shook his body, then some of the hair from the Lord actually fell on this particular place, and Prabhupada cites that was why the place was actually filled with rich and opulence and was an exalted city, not because of its material connection, but due to the connection with the Supreme Lord. Text 31. Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. So this is also, you can see, once Manu arrived at his kingdom, he immediately sat down to actually meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a very beautiful temple. So if one of you can volunteer to read the purport, that'll be great. Mataji, you want to read?
No problem. So you want me to read the 33rd?
31 purport.
31. My computer.
I think we are not able to hear you, Mataji. I think she got disconnected. Maybe Vedavat Prabhu, can you read?
Yeah, she said her
Yes,
computer.
Prabhu. Manu is the father of mankind, and therefore from Manu comes the word man, or in Sanskrit Manushya. Those who are in a better position in the world, having sufficient wealth, should especially take lessons from Manu, who accepted his kingdom and opulence to be gift from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus always engaged in devotional service. Similarly, the descendants of Manu are human beings, especially those who are situated in a well-to-do condition, must consider that whatever riches they have are gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those riches should be utilized for the service of the Lord in sacrifices performed to please Him. That is the way of utilizing wealth and opulence. No one can achieve wealth, opulence, good birth, a beautiful body, or nice education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, those who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness to the Lord by worshipping Him and offering what they have received from Him. When such acknowledgement is given, either by a family, nation, or society, their abode becomes almost like Vaikuntha, and it becomes free from the operation of the threefold miseries of this material world. In the modern age, the mission of Krishna consciousness is for everyone to acknowledge the supremacy of Lord Krishna. Whatever one has in his possession must be considered a gift by the grace of the Lord. Everyone therefore should engage in devotional service through Krishna consciousness. If one wants to be happy and peaceful in his position, either as a householder or citizen or a member of human society, one must promote devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord.
Thank you, Prabhu. And we can see how this actually, this particular verse in the purport talks about the acknowledgement and gratitude. So Manu actually acknowledges, all his opulence to the cause of, due to the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he feels grateful for the Lord actually to give him all these opulences. And similarly, we can also extend that and see, how many fortunate things we have attained in our lives. Of course, opulence, one kind of category of opulence is material category of opulence, but the another category is the spiritual opulence actually, which includes associating with devotees and then coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, and then engaging in different activities, having a temple, having a deity form, worshipping the deities. So all these are different kinds of opulences that we should try to be grateful and acknowledge, the Supreme Lord's mercy. Otherwise, if we take it for granted, then often, Mukund Prabhu says that nothing stays forever. Nothing stays the same forever. So, as long as we are grateful and we acknowledge the Supreme Lord's mercy, either in the form of spiritual or material opulence, and we then we can situate ourselves in a satisfied and a happy way by engaging in different forms of devotional service. The danger is when we take things for granted. So text 32. Having entered the city of Barhishmati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. So this is also a very beautiful verse and a purport. You can see that the palace was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of the material existence. And Prabhupada very nicely explained in the purport that for a devotee, it's not that the material miseries vanishes, but rather he says that it is not that the miseries of the material world completely vanish when one takes to Krishna consciousness, but for one who is Krishna conscious, the miseries of material existence have no effect.
We cannot stop the miseries of material atmosphere, but Krishna consciousness is an antiseptic method to protect us from being affected by the miseries of material existence. So Srila Prabhupada very nicely explained that it's not going to vanish, all the material miseries, but one becomes transcendental to it by the power of Krishna consciousness, by the transcendental engagement of Krishna consciousness. Text 33. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed his life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles. Contrary to the process of religion, celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor. And early in the morning, every day, he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart. Actually, there is also a very beautiful verse and purport. Here, it talks about the king's life, and of course, the next verse it talks about, how a king's life who's absorbed in material opulence generally actually drags down. It goes down by the lowest grade of life because he has the facility and the opulence to enjoy material life. But you can see here how the saintly king Swayambhu Manu's life was organized in such a way that he was always remembering, or at every opportunity he remembered the Supreme Personality of Godhead right from the morning. Of course, it's a big opulence that such. So Prabhupada says in the purport that that professional musicians actually sing with sahanais, and so both before they get up and before they go to sleep, for these kingly personality, or in palaces there would be musicians actually, and the musicians they would sing the glories of the Lord, and the princely members actually get up listening to these glories of the Lord sing in a nice fashion. I mean, that's so nice, right? I mean, we generally wake up to alarm clock, banging on our ears, but if you have the opulence, we can hire some musicians who can actually sing the glories of the Lord, and we can wake up hearing nicely to the glories of the Lord. And similarly, when they go to bed also, there is a katha, there is a discussion on the Srimad Bhagavatam and about the glory, about the pastimes of the Lord. And the musicians again sing and the glories of the Lord. So these princely class of people actually they go to bed by hearing the glories of the Lord and dreaming about the Lord in their sleep. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that sometimes these royal palaces has such beautiful temples, and he gives the example of Jaipur, and he says that it is also given access to the local the public. So sometimes the public also comes, and each palace has has temple of its own. So the saintly kings used to live in this way by always taking an opportunity to hear about the Lord and becoming absorbed in the thoughts about the Lord. So these palaces would have temples inside their walls, and sometimes they are also given access to the public. So the public also comes for Mangalarati in the morning, and they attend these worship in an opulent way. And he gives the example of Jaipur. And then, of course, Prabhupada says that temple worship of the royal family is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, where it is stated that those who fail to achieve success in Bhakti Yoga principle within one life are given a chance to take birth in the next life, a family of rich men or in royal family, or family of learned brahmanas and devotees. If one gets the opportunity to take birth in these families, he can achieve the facilities of Krishna conscious atmosphere without difficulty. So text 34. Thus, Swayambhu Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna conscious atmosphere. Maybe one of you can read the purport. It summarizes the the points, some of the points very nicely. Govind Babu, maybe you can read, or
Sure. Um, the kingly happiness of material enjoyment generally drags one to the lowest grade of life, namely degradation to animal life, because of unrestricted sense enjoyment. But Swayambhuva Manu was considered as good as a saintly sage because the atmosphere created in his kingdom and home was completely Krishna conscious. The case is similar with the conditioned souls in general. They come into this material life for sense gratification, but if they are able to create a Krishna conscious atmosphere as depicted here or as prescribed in revealed scriptures by temple worship and household deity worship, then in spite of their material enjoyment, they can make advancement in pure Krishna consciousness without a doubt. At the present moment, modern civilization is too much attached to the material way of life for sense gratification. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement can give the people in general the best opportunity to utilize their human life in the midst of material enjoyment. Krishna consciousness does not stop them in their propensity for material enjoyment, but simply regulates their habits in the life of sense enjoyment. In spite of their enjoying the material advantages, they can be liberated in this very life by practicing Krishna consciousness by the simple method of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
thank you, Prabhu. So such a nice purport. Now there is some hope actually that Prabhupada he nicely explains that it doesn't really stop one, but it regulates one's habits in the life of sense enjoyment. And because Krishna consciousness is such a potent process, of course we cannot, because Bhakti Yoga is such a potent process, we cannot apply the same principle to other forms of yogic process. But because the potency of Bhakti Yoga and the mercy of the Supreme Lord, one can still aspire for spiritual perfection, even though having regulated sense enjoyment in the material situation. So that is the mercy of the Supreme Lord in the process of Bhakti Yoga. So text 35. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life consisting of a manvantara era was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. So this is how Swayambhuva Manu actually spent his time. Can somebody read this purport? This is also a very nice purport which Srila Prabhupada mentions a lot of nice points.
I can read for him.
Yes, Mataji.
I hope I'll be able to. You'll be able to hear me, okay.
Yeah.
The kingly happiness of material enjoyment generally drags one to the lowest grade of life, namely degradation to animal life, because of unrestricted sense.
Mataji.
Sorry, I'm reading the same thing, right? Let me read it.
Yeah.
Next one, Mataji.
As freshly prepared food is very tasteful, but if kept for 3 or 4 hours, becomes stale and tasteless. So the existence of material enjoyment can endure as long as life is fresh. But at the fag end of life, everything becomes tasteless, and everything appears to be vain and painful. The life of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, however, was not tasteless. As he grew older, his life remained as fresh as in the beginning, because of his continued Krishna consciousness. The life of a man in Krishna consciousness is always fresh. It is said that sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, and its business is to reduce the duration of one's life. But the sunrise and sunset cannot diminish the life of one who engages in Krishna consciousness. Swayambhuva Manu's life did not become stale after some time, for he engaged himself always in chanting about and meditating upon Lord Vishnu. He was the greatest yogi because he never wasted his time. It is especially mentioned here, Vishnu Purvato Bruvataha Katah. When he talked only of Krishna and Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. When he heard something, it was about Krishna. When he meditated, it was upon Krishna and his activities. It is stated that his life was very long, 71 yugas. One yuga is completed in 4 lakh 320,000 years. 71 of such yugas is the duration of the life, and 14 such manus come and go in one day of Brahma. For the entire duration of his life, that is 4 lakh 320,000 into 71 years, Manu engaged in Krishna consciousness by chanting, hearing, talking about, and meditating upon Krishna. Therefore, his life was not wasted, nor did it become stale.
Yeah, it's a very wonderful purport.
Igor?
Yes, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. So you can see that we can see that Swayambhu Manu's life, as he grew older, did not become stale, and we have also read elsewhere in Srila Prabhupada's purport and a different verse that a devotee's life actually becomes, towards the end, it becomes more and more intensely engaged in devotional service. For a common man, actually, he towards the end of his life, one nears retirement. But for a devotee, he becomes more and more intensely engaged, and we can see the example of Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, how they have become more and more intense. They are full of life actually, and they are full of activity, and they are so intensely engaged in the service of the Lord. And this is the this is the mark of a sincere devotee who engages in devotional service. And just a few more verses. Text 36. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages, always thinking of Vasudev, and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudev. Thus, he transcended the 3 destinations. So, Srila Prabhupada talks about the 3 destinations here being the higher planetary systems and the material world on Earth, and then the lower planetary systems, and the categories according to the 3 modes of material nature. So he transcended all these 3 destinations because of complete absorption on Krishna. Text 37. Therefore, Rudra, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna and devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, mind, nature, and other men, living creatures? Text 38. In reply to the questions asked by certain sages, he, Swayambhu Manu, out of compassion for all living entities, taught the diverse sacred duties of men in general and the different varnas and ashramas. Text 39. I have spoken to you of the wonderful character of Swayambhu Manu, the original king, whose reputation is worthy of description. Please hear as I speak of the flourishing of his daughter Devahuti. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 22nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Marriage of Karadhavani and Devahuti. Yes, Mataji, we were able to hear the complete purport, and after that it just went out. So Krishna's arrangement, we were able to hear it completely. So that ends the this particular chapter. The next chapter starts off with the description about Devahuti and her lamentation and desire for having children and so on and so forth. So Srivas Prabhu, so should we ask for questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Sundar Guru, for the nice presentation. Please go ahead around the group and ask questions.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I'll just go in order. Govinchan Prabhu, you have any comments?
Sure, but if you want, Shri Gopal Prabhu can go first.
Okay. Yeah, Shri Gopal Prabhu, you have any comments? No questions?
Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was very nice presentation, and I felt that this chapter has many, many practical points to be, to be noted down. Like from the corporation and the duties of the king. I mean, especially might not apply, but how to engage your opulences or wealth in service of Krishna, and offering the daughter, and other very practical
Duties of a
presentation,
father.
yeah, practical duties, and also listening with the open ears from the sages and from the spiritual master, taking instruction from him. So very felt it was a very nice chapter about the practical things that you could follow. The question I has is there is I think in the first, fourth or third, I think second verse, it talks about the cooperation between the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, where they protect each other, and also the translation mentions about protecting the Lord. So they say that they also protect the Lord. Let me see the exact. So just wanted to know how do they protect the Lord?
Well, my understanding was that the Lord protects them. Text 4, if you read the translation, it says that is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves, and the Lord himself, who's both the cause and effect and is yet immutable, protects them through each other.
I see. Okay.
So
It's the other half.
it's
Something the
another
other half.
half. So basically, my understanding was that the Lord actually, ultimately, he's a protector, even though he creates all these divisions for protecting and work for them to cooperate. But
Yes.
ultimately, as we learn from the seventh canto, a parent cannot protect a child, the medicine will not work. Ultimately, it's a sanction of the Supreme Lord, which actually, all these things are being carried out.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. And other question I had was, do you know where this place Barismati is? The capital city of Manu.
Right.
In our
Where this place is?
present demographics.
Yeah, no, I don't know actually. I don't have an idea where this is.
Yes. Okay, I think that's yeah.
Somebody, maybe Srivas Prabhu, if he has more.
Actually, the city existed during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, who is the first Manu, and we are in the seventh Manu. So millions and millions of years have passed. And even Dwarka city, which existed 5,000 years ago, is no longer visible to our physical vision. So I'm pretty sure that this city must be invisible because of the ravages of time. Because one Manu reigns for 14 Divya Yugas, which means it's an enormous amount of time. And then Swayambhuva Manu was the first Manu, and then 7 Manus have passed. So it is 14 into
71. 14 into 71.
14 into 71 into 7, because this is the 7th Manu. We are in the Vaivasvata Manu.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not that easy to figure out where Vaivasvata exactly existed. And besides, the universe itself is so constantly changing that the physical location of a particular place that existed millions of years ago no longer lives there. It's impossible to pinpoint the exact spot. I think we will get a better idea when we read the 5th canto on how things change.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense, because this, I mean, so many yugas have been passed, and there is a different Manu for each, I mean, there is different Manus, right? And we are in 7th Manu, and they might have their own kingdom in different kingdoms, and that is no longer applicable probably for this. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm done, Prabhu. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Prabhu. Goncharam Prabhu. One of the-
Thank you, Sundar, for the very nice class. It was very sweet. I had one question. So, in that part where it says, Kartama Muni wanted to leave as soon as Devahuti begets a child. So, I was just thinking, because in the Srila Prabhupada talks about Varnashrama and Sannyas and other things. So is this a special case of, because we always know that the responsibility of the parent is also to raise the child, not just give the wife a child. So I was wondering if there's any insight on that. I couldn't find that in the purport. The reason this particular example is being set here by Kardava Muni. Of course, the example of renunciation is obvious, but the other part of fulfilling one's responsibility, how do you understand that?
So in the later life of Kardama, Sri Govincharan Prabhu, as we see, initially they have 9 daughters, and when they are ready, actually Kardama helps to raise them, and when they are married, he wants to go to forest, and then at that time Devoti asks so for one more child because he's going to go to forest and nobody's there to take care of him. So it's not like, our understanding here is that my vow of taking sannyas is fixed, and that's my purpose in life. I'm just saying upfront. So later, you shouldn't say that
Okay.
you promised there to be lifetime. But obviously, a child at that time, woman was never supposed to work or get other source of income. The husband had to take care of the child till they are grown and married, and then he could kind of take the sannyas order.
So he's basically what do you call, under promising and over delivering.
You can say that.
And it's also it's minor again. It's the same point. I was going to address it in the same way that Srivas Prabhu was saying that in the later chapters you see it differently, and I mean my understanding was also not to take it literally in the sense immediately. It was what it meant was after a child and then when they grow up and become responsible. And of course, he hands her over to Kapila Dev before he actually seeks permission from Kapila Dev, and then he goes on to take his renunciation. So, yeah.
Wonderful. And then the purport we read about where the spiritual master Prabhupada was emphasizing on that. It was amazing how many times he uses the word spiritual master in the purport. Mukund Prabhu used to say this is like Prabhupada's deliberate approach. Not just like mention it once, but 10 times, 1,000 times, just to make hit on the same point again and again. That's very deliberate. I was thinking how put emphasis on that point.
Yeah, because it's not really a direct dealing between a spiritual master and a disciple here, but it's every opportunity Srila Prabhupada gets to bring that point and emphasize on that point, and he does that.
Okay. So that's it for me. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Prabhu. Shri Govindatta Prabhu.
So, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for going over the chapters. And as Shri Gopal said that this chapter has so many lessons from the practical point of view, and especially we see how there's so much refined dealings of all the people involved in this chapter, like Kadama Muni, like how is he accepting the proposal of Sadhu Manu. At the same time, his thoughts are observed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even while he's glorifying Dehuti. And Dehuti, although she's been brought up in royal environment, she want to accept the austerities with Kadam Muni, and Sambhu Muni also taking full responsibility of as a father. And the king, like he's also, although managing the kingdom, he's also fully absorbed in the pastime of the Lord. This is a very wonderful chapter. I had the same question, I think, like Sri Gopal Prabhu, on the same on the city Brahmati. Uh, so one is location part, and another is um, we see that Shambhu Manu actually mounted in the previous chapter. We heard Shambhu Manu mounted the chariot and traveled all over the earth, and he reached the Saraswati river where Kadama Muni was doing austerities. So it seems like that city is still on the earth. Maybe the place, the name of the place have changed, but it's still on the earth. So the question I had, like, how come the Lord Varaha's shaking when Lord Varaha came from the nostril of Brahma? That time Lord Varaha shaked his body, and the hair from his body fell on Brahmati, that city. But we hear that the earth was actually submerged into ocean that time. So I'm just trying to understand, like, how the hair of the Lord's body fell on that city while the river, while the earth was still in the ocean.
Well, that's a lot of technical details. The thing is, I mean, I don't have a direct answer of. One thing is, I'm not sure, when. Of course, anything is possible for the Lord. So I don't know the exact instance when the Lord actually, shook his body and then the hair fell. Was it, after delivering the earth or before delivering the earth? And so I don't recollect those details. So I will not be able to do justice giving you an answer just based on my speculation.
Prabhu, I was thinking that after, because he had a lot of water on him being in the water, and then he brushes the water off. I don't know. I thought
Right. So basically, after the earth was saved, right? You're saying,
So there's a description of when Lord Vara came out of the nostril. The sages were a little bit surprised, and after that, Lord Vara shaked his body and made some sound.
I see. Yeah, I'll have to go and refer back more, Prabhu, and see.
I mean, this is a little technical. I mean, it doesn't have to be not directly connected to devotional service, but this is a question.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Yes.
Prabhu.
There's a nice purport I read in the last week's chapter. We didn't cover it, but I can go. I shared it to the screen. That kind of gives idea to understand this. So, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Chapter 21, verse 25. The Emperor Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous act, has his seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans. Prabhupada says, sometimes it is stated that Brahmavarta is part of Kurukshetra, or that Kurukshetra itself is situated in Brahmavarta, because the demigods are recommended to perform spiritual ritualistic performances in Kurukshetra. But in others' opinion, Brahmavarta is a place in Brahmaloka where Swayambhuva ruled. There are many places on the surface of this earth which are also known in the higher planetary systems. We have places on this planet like Vrindavan, Dwaraka, and Mathura, but they are also eternally situated in Krishna. There are many similar names on the surface of the earth, and it may be that in the Bohr age, Swayambhuva Manu ruled this planet as stated here. The word Mangala is significant, and then it goes on to other things. So that's one way to understand is that sometimes they refer to both areas, not just. You have to understand it in multiple ways. There's another.
Actually, the other way to look at it, thank you, Govind Charan Prabhu, for your comment, is that when Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa were ordered by Brahma to expand the progeny, they were living at certain place, is it not? they had to stay on certain place and to live. And the earth was a place where they could actually expand. So my understanding was Brahmavarta was somewhere close to Brahmaloka in heavenly planets, which was their uh, official residence, but their office or their area of work was on the planet Earth. And since they had to execute their duties, they said to Brahma, you asked us to increase the progeny, but where is the earth? Because the earth is needed to increase the progeny. So Brahma, in that sense, Varaha came to lift the earth so that they could expand the progeny, but they had their own official residence, Parismati, which is somewhere near Brahma's planet or close about to Brahma's planet. That's my understanding. And when Lord Varaha expanded himself, so he could expand himself to the heights of the universe, and when he shook, even on the hairs from the Varaha actually fell on the Varishmati, which is the capital city of Swayambhuva Manu. That's my understanding based on the logic we have had so far.
Yes, bro, I think that makes sense. Thank you very much, Govinchar bro and Shivasmati bro.
And also they give an example of how in the Bhagavatam, sometimes the description, for example, there are 4 types of description he says. One is Bhumandala as a projection of the earth globe. So there are descriptions which refer to the places in earth. And then second interpretation is Bhumandala as a map of the solar system. So it includes things beyond the earth as part of the solar system. And then the third interpretation is Jambudvipa as a topographical map of South Central Asia. So these were more specific places on earth are mentioned. And the fourth is Bhumandala as a map of the celestial realm of the Devas. So he says some of these description they give more than one level at the same time. So basically here at the beginning of this chapter, like Shradaputta Prabhu says, in the Bhagavatam, the same, here it says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remark, in every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in every syllable there are various meanings. So he says this appears to be true in particular of the cosmological section of the Bhagavatam. And he says how it's encoding a lot of knowledge in a very few verses. So there are multiple levels of understanding it. So yeah, those questions are something we need to ask so that we can bring out more meaning of these.
Yeah, sure, bro. Thank you very much. Another question I had, Sundar bro, about in the beginning there was description that Kshatriyas are emanating from the thousand-legged supreme being. In the verse 3rd, chapter 22nd, verse 3rd, for the protection of the Brahmanas, thousand-legged supreme being created us, the Kshatriyas, from the 1,000 arms. So my understanding this is referring to the universal form of the Lord. So the universal form has unlimited hands and unlimited arms. So why the thousands are being used here? Ananta Bahu, like in Bhagavad Gita, we see Arjuna is talking about seeing the Supreme Lord's form and universal form, and there is a points about unlimited heads, unlimited hands, unlimited legs.
I mean, I think,
Here,
because Sanskrit here says Sahasrapad.
yeah.
And then those Sahasra. So there is I think it's figuratively saying that, many, at least that's how I understand it actually. Because, who has 1,000 hands anyways? At the most, the demigods have 2 hands, or the devotees in Vaikuntha have 4 hands. But I think it just leads on to say 1,000 hands means, it just figuratively it can mean many hands and many legs and spread all over the cosmic manifestation and the universal form.
Yes, sir. If I understood correctly, you meant to say like the 1,000 means many here, not exactly the number 1,000. Okay.
Right.
Mm. I think yes, that's it. Another reflection I had is about this Sambhu Manu listening to Lord's pastimes while going to sleep and then waking up. So it's really interesting. And we don't have so many musicians playing, but we can put iPhones and iPads and play the kirtans while sleeping and maybe taking rest. Um, maybe some devotees can tell if will that have the same effect, or we need to do something special.
Now, my opinion is, it will. I mean, it will have an effect. It also depends on our consciousness also.
Mhm.
Both the consciousness of the person who is reciting and the consciousness of the person who is hearing. So it is it depend on both the consciousness. So the person who's singing has a really devotional, genuine devotional mood. It certainly has a greater impact than listening to an iPhone or an iPod. But but that is nullified if the person who's hearing has a higher level of consciousness, has a higher level of devotional consciousness, that even a little thing or a small thing actually triggers his devotional ecstasy to such a great extent that he is overpowered by a sentiment of gratitude and love for Krishna. So I think it's depend on both levels of consciousness on both sides.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for nice presentation. Going on with chapter.
So going through on that particular point, Dharma Samhita 5:11. So where the source came from, Sahasra Sirisha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapa Sahasrabha Vishmatma. So in that it is mentioned thousands of arms and thousands of legs. It's not one single thousand. Just to add to whatever that was discussed at that point of time. Thank you.
Yes, Vavi. Thank you for that reflection. That helps a lot.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your nice questions. Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Very nice presentation, Prabhu. I don't know if I was having some problems with my computer, though I don't know if that's the connection or the Google talk. So yeah, it was very nice, Prabhu. And I was thinking about the dowry system that we were reading in the purport. So the dowry, I know it causes a havoc in today's lives, but looks like there was dowry even those days. So I was not too sure what do we know really the purpose of giving dowry away, or because I just was looking at the purport, I don't see that, but it does say that Manu gave a lot of dowry to certain relatives.
Yeah, in the same purport, Prabhupada also says that for the opulent man it's easier to give, and for the person who doesn't have so much opulence, he should at least give a fruit and some flowers. So I think the giving of the dowry is surely calibrated, using um, one's capacity of opulence that he has and how much he can actually.
Sorry, Prabhu, I have this problem. I've been seeing that all through the 2 minutes I hear, and for 10, 50 seconds I don't. I
Yeah.
don't see that till now, Prabhu. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that if somebody doesn't have opulence, he can at least give some fruit and flowers.
Oh, okay.
And so he covers that particular point that one gives according to the amount of the capacity that he has, the amount of opulence that he has, and it's not necessarily that it has to be huge. But doesn't have the general tradition is one doesn't have opulence, then he at least gives some fruits and flowers, like how Krishna says in the Gita. One can even offer me with love and devotion a fruit flower. So Prabhupada says that example and says that one can at least do that according to one's capacity.
Yeah, so not demanding as such, but it's just the Kali Yuga effect that people demand. Okay. Prabhu, so I was also thinking about, the whole chapter is very instructive. A lot of things that we need to take to the devotional service, and very hard, as Sri Gopal Prabhu said, that Arjuna Just wanted to second it. It was just wonderful chapter. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Vedavet Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. Very nice, and thank you for allowing us to read important purports. There are many lessons we can learn from those. So some doubts I have and already clarified by the other devotees' questions. Just I like one point in this 35th verse purport is like Krishna conscious. The person's life is always fresh. Because many people we see like life is like boring. People say like that, but Prabhupada says like the life of a man in Krishna consciousness is always fresh. So that gives some hope for me to continue in Krishna consciousness. Because I was thinking Swayambhu Manu had like so much life span of his lifespan is so much, and still he was able to engage in Krishna consciousness for whole his lifetime. We have like compared to that, it's like very minute lifespan we have, and still I'm struggling with engaging myself in whatever little time we have. Also, we are not I'm not able to engage completely in Krishna service.
Yes, Prabhu. The point about Swayambhu's lifespan is a good point actually. Yeah, and compared to our life is pretty huge. Lifespan is pretty huge, and
yes, Prabhu.
yeah, I mean, I think he had every day, singing over the praise of the Lord, devotees singing for him, waking up, remembering the Lord, and submerged in the thoughts of the Lord throughout. And I guess, as a pure devotee of the Lord, he was also experiencing a higher taste.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So we can conclude the session.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Govind Prabhu, just is there any technical problem, or because I was not able to see some of the pictures like Sundar Prabhu's picture, I was not able to see in this. I don't know if it is, but even though he's speaking, I can see only is it Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's picture, or only I can see that. I was not able to see some of the picture. But Srivas Prabhu I can see now, but earlier I was not able to see. Like it was showing black.
Probably you have to unmute yourself.
No, maybe your connection, if it doesn't have the video, it will show the Mahaprabhu's icon instead of Sundar's video for some time, like that.
So everybody else able to see?
Yep.
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, okay, Prabhu.
So it like that. And Shukeshwari Mataji, probably you have to get a new computer or something. I can recommend Google Chromebook. It's only $200.
Going Charan Prabhu, you can try your second career at sales. You'll be a very effective salesperson.
The Bhagavatam converts into a sales, which I think we can conclude the session. Thank you all.
Haribol, thank you so much.
Thank you for
having participating, giving me a nice time. Hare Krishna.